Playwright and musician Jennifer Chase has been a pivotal figure in Jacksonville's art and music scene for over 3 decades. In 2022, she was the recipient of the Art Ventures Grant from the Community Foundation of Northeast Florida. She joins us today to preview her upcoming retrospective performance. Jennifer Chase, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much, Anne, for having me.
It's our pleasure. So for our listeners who may not be familiar with your work, what are some of the themes and elements that you've used in your work over the past few decades?
Yeah, interestingly enough, it's home and people. And those are sometimes synonymous for me, the people of Jacksonville, and this idea of us struggling to come up with where is home. I've taught refugees for many, many years in Jacksonville, uncovered historical figures like Anta Mijiganjai or Anna Kingsley, and written plays and songs about her in Senegal. Mavin Betch, an amazing. So there's just no limit to the richness of the collaborative partners I have in the artist communities, my students and mentors, and history. And it all overlaps, and of course, family. And it all is the same thing for me and gives rise to my productions, ranging from rock operas to musicals to solo performances.
You've really done so much. You describe your work as character-driven. So what is your process for bringing these characters to life?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question because thanks to the Community Foundation for this grant and writing this project, which is about process. And so I had to deconstruct to reconstruct. So first, I'm inspired by a person and a feeling. A lot of times I connect on a personal level with the person, which doesn't find its way into the play directly at all. Qualitative research is a really important part of my process. And so it takes as long as it takes, which can mean travel, it can mean reading, it can mean lots of interviews, connecting past and present. So a lot of it's lonely at first, but then very early on, I bring in music and collaborative partners. And so lyrics and metaphors have an important role in what I do.
So your upcoming performance is kind of a mix of memoir and theater and songwriting. Tell us about the project. What is it, and how does it? What are we going to see?
Yeah. So it's called "I Can Smell You From Here." We're allowed to say that, right?
You can say
Okay.
that.
I can smell
Hopefully
you.
you can't smell me from here. But.
No, and it's 17 letters to my city. So beginning in 1993, and I don't think this is helpful to our listeners, but it might be helpful to you. 1993, that little girl on my very first album, I had never written a song when I moved here, is the little girl on the cover of my book and my new album.
And you should know it's a picture of a darling little girl dressed up in a frilly dress and a kind of a veil, and it says Kid Jail.
That was the name of my first album. Yeah. So when I wrote the grant and I thought, I'm going to dare myself to do this project in which I go back 30 years and examine the richness of the people along the way who have been a part of this system of developing as an artist, finding my home, uncovering people's stories that don't think there's anything special about them, or we might not, or history might not have decided they were special. And so the project is 17 letters to Jacksonville, in which Jacksonville is the you in the story. And what I thought was going to be a critique, really, of my city, turned out to be a mixed bag of incredible appreciation and calling up people that I started this musical journey with 30 years ago and sitting at my kitchen table in my fabulous newly renovated kitchen in my 82-year-old house and having conversations and rediscovering the exhale and the ease with which we artists in Jacksonville communicate. It's so invigorating in a climate that's brutal right now for so many. It feels frivolous to me in a way to talk about 30 years of artistic work, yada yada, my albums, my plays, unless I can find a contribution that I can make to own failure, which is a big part of why I asked the Community Foundation for an extension, and they gave it to me. It took a while to address not only Jacksonville's failures along the way, but my own and where we take that from here artistically. And so my fellow artists were a big part of that exhale of understanding each other.
It's terrible how fast this goes by, but the performance of I Can Smell You From Here, it's November 29th at Babs Lab. Just very briefly, where can people get tickets?
Okay, so people can get tickets at jenchase.com. There's a link at Babs Lab where you can purchase your tickets. We're almost sold out, I think. I'm going to have a cellist, Holly D. Cardenas, and pianist Michelle Battaglia. And she's going to be performing the music from my 7-song EP. And I will be performing excerpted scenes directed by the one and only fabulous Barbara Colacello.
All right, we've got a song that you shared with us here. It's called Houston and Lee. Jennifer Chase, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Anne.